Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्ति। गीता ध्यानम्। ॐ पार्थाय प्रतिबोधितां भगवता नारायणेन स्वयं व्यासेन ग्रथितां पुराणमुनिना मध्ये महाभारतम् अद्वैतामृतवर्षिणीं भगवतीम् अष्टादशाध्यायिनी अम्ब त्वामनुसन्धतामि भगवद्गीते भवद्वेषिणी। नमोऽस्तु व्यासविशालबुद्धे पुल्लारविन्दायतपत्रनेत्रा येन त्वया भारततैलपूर्णः प्रज्वालितो ज्ञानमयप्रदीपः प्रपन्नपारिजाताय तोत्रवैत्रेकपाणये ज्ञानमुद्राय कृष्णाय गीतामृतदुहे नमः। सर्वोपनिषदो गावो दूता गोपालनन्दनः पार्थो वत्सः सुधीर्भोक्ता दुग्धं गीतामृतं महत्। वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुं। भीष्मद्रोणतटा जयद्रथजला गान्धारनीलोत्पला शल्यग्राहवती कृपेण वहनी कर्णेन वेलाकुला अश्वत्थामविकर्णघोरमकरा दुर्योधनावर्तिनी सोत्तीर्णा खलु पाण्डवैरननदी कैवर्तककेशवः पाराशर्यवचः सरोजममलं गीतार्थगन्धोत्कटं नानाख्यानककेसरं हरिकथा सम्बोधनाबोधितम्। लोके सज्जनषट्परैरहरहः पेपीयमानं मुदा भूयाद्भारतपङ्कजं कलिमलप्रध्वंसिन श्रेयसे। मूकं करोति वाचालं पङ्गुं लङ्घयति गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे परमानन्दमाधवम्। यं ब्रह्मा वरुणेन्द्ररुद्रमरुतः स्तुन्वन्ति दिव्यैस्तवैः वेदैः साङ्गपदक्रमोपनिषदे गायन्ति यं सामगाः ध्यानावस्थिततद्गतेन मनसा पश्यन्ति यं योगिनो यस्यान्तं न विदुः सुरासुरगणा देवाय तस्मै नमः देवाय तस्मै नमः देवाय तस्मै नमः।
Hari Om. You see a different background today because we are in Kotagiri. I came here, and my mother and sister are sitting in front of me today. But both of them at different sides of the horizon, so I cannot turn the camera and show you both at the same time. Maybe later. Okay, Hari Om. So Bhagavan says that he is untouched and unaffected by any and all of his cosmic creative undertakings. And to emphasize this, he says, even though he has defined them and he has defined how karma is to be performed and how karma should be chosen based on human nature, he himself is akarta and abhokta, which means he does not get into doing, into doership. Bhagavan used the concept of prakriti-based gunas, which is nature-based tendencies, and defined the chaturvarnyam, or the fourfold system. And on a permutation combination based on these two, he defined who or what kind of people should be doing what kind of actions or roles in society. And we mentioned last time that it was, Anupama said, used the right term when she said, a comprehensive psychometric analysis, probably the world's first ever, but much more deeper than what we know as psychometric analysis, actually much more and much deeper. And with the passage of time, long time, as we have seen, Kalena Mahata, this also, among a lot of other things, this also decayed. And because of that decay, it manifested into what we know of as the caste system. Now, Bhagavan says that he remains beyond the plane of action and explains the secret. Namam karmani limpanti name karma phale spriha. Actions do not stain me, as I have no desire for the fruits of the action. And then he says that those who know me like this, those who know me fully well, those who know me completely, fully, abhijanati mam, those people who know me and perform their actions, they attain liberation. So he encourages Arjuna and all people, human beings, to know him in such a manner. Know him meaning, know him as the Bhagavan Rupa, the Swarupa, the Yogeshwara, and know him as the Avatar, which he talked about and described in detail. What we see is karma or akarma, which is action or inaction. And Bhagavan says, Kim karma, kim akarma, what is action, what is inaction? And he says that the wise are also deluded in this aspect. Kavyo api mohita. They are also deluded. And what is the truth or the tattva behind it? One who grasps the truth and the tattva, that person goes beyond action. Tatte karma pravikshyami yagyatva mokshase shubhat. And he says, Pravakshyami, I shall teach you that action, knowing which you will attain liberation. In the ancient times, there existed a class of people, a kind of people or a class of people, and this was a little over 1,000 years ago, between the 8th and the 9th century. And these were called Vikings. They were in Northern Europe. they were essentially pirates and sea warriors. And these people were feared by the inhabitants of any land, whichever they explored. Wherever they went, they were feared. They were warriors and they were pirates too. And these Vikings, on the other hand, were fearful of one thing. That was the solar eclipse. Imagine their, the amount of fear that they would have felt, how threatened they would have been when they saw that not only was this sun, who was the life-giving sun, was being eaten up, but among them, those who looked up at it, a lot of them were blinded. And this was the unknown enemy that was doing this every now and then. And the only way they knew how to react to what they saw was yelling, screaming, brandishing weapons, trying to wage a war at this unknown enemy. What then was the tattva, as Bhagavan says? What was the truth? Now, even before the Vikings, even though the Vikings behaved like this, even much before them, in the 200th century before Christ, BC, there was one Kavaya whose name was Aristarchus. Aristarchus was the first to have postulated that it is the earth that revolves around the sun. And he also formulated a theory based on the eclipses. Now, so-called Kavayos from organized religion, they called this blasphemy and they actually imprisoned him. So Bhagavan says, to know the truth behind karma and akarma, first understand what is karma and what is akarma. Complete cessation of activities is not possible in life because life exists because of activities. Activity is the very cornerstone of life. And at the same time, it constitutes moments of activity, moments of high intense activity, moments of activity, and moments of inactivity. In general, it is thought or it is believed that in inactivity, neither progress nor deterioration is possible. And only in activity do these two things happen. But then, is inaction really equal to no action? Do they mean the same, inaction and no action? Is all of action really equal to action? If there is activity, does it mean that there is action? So this soldier, he says, sir, I'm going to action. Typically in the army, when you go to the battlefield, it says, I'm going to action. He says, sir, I'm going to action. Salutes the general and goes into the battlefield. The war is going on. So obviously there is a lot of activity, running, hiding, firing, shouting, evading, shooting, hub of activity. In the command post, the bunker, typically, in the bunker is where the command post is, or in a room, the general appears to be doing nothing. Nothing at all. At the end of the day, however, the soldier returns scarred, shaken, valiant, and then he goes and salutes the general and he says, thank you, sir. You saved our day. You saved our regiment. You saved our lives. So the general who appeared to be inactive, appeared to be doing nothing, was actually watching, was observing, was seeing, was listening, was thinking, was strategizing. And at a crucial moment, made a decision. And that decision is what the soldier thanked him for at the end of the day. Life as we see around us is comprised of activity and inactivity. Within the realm of activity are actions that should be done, ought to be done, and actions that should be avoided. Both are in the realm of action, or both are actually in the realm of karma, so they are karma. However, the former is referred to as karma, whereas the latter, what should not be done, is called vikarma. Karma is of three types, and we saw this earlier. So a quick glimpse. Nitya karma, which are duties that must be done every day. Naimittika karma, which are duties that arise out of occasion, out of role that is being played by people. And these two together are called niyata karma. or obligatory duties. And then there is kamya karma, which is action that arises out of desires. And there is a goal to fulfill these desires. Akarma or inaction is also of two types. Actually, the second type I am including because it's so relevant nowadays. The first is tushni bhava. Tushni bhava is nothing but a bhava of silence or tranquility. This state could also be that of action. Like, for example, a fan rotating at a super fast speed, at high speed, silent and appearing to be stationary. And tamasic bhava, which is laziness or dullness. It is important for us to understand both of these, tamasic bhava also. In general, akarma or inaction is known as tushnim bhava. But it's very important, especially in today's time in Kali Yuga, to distinguish tushnim bhava from tamasic bhava. So essentially, life has activity, life has inactivity. Activity is of two types, karma and vikarma. Karma is actions that are to be done. Vikarma are actions that are to be avoided. And inactivity is of two types, tushni bhava, which is silence or tranquility, and tamasic bhava, which is laziness or dullness. Karma, again, is of three types, which are nitya karma or daily duties, naimittika karma or duties that arise out of role or occasion, and kamya karma that are desire prompted action. So Bhagavan says that there is a fact, a tattva, a truth. That truth that makes them what they are, karma and akarma, action and inaction. And Bhagavan says this fact, this truth, it should be known. What should be known? What is karmanaha or action, good action? What is vikarmanaha or forbidden action or actions that should not be done? And what is akarmanaha, which is inaction? And he says, I shall teach you these. Pravakshami. This is where we had ended last time, or last satsang. So now we'll move on with verse 18.
Karmanya karmaya pashed.
Karmanya karmanya pasched.
Akarmani cha karmayaha.
Akarmani cha karmayaha.
Sabhuddhiman manushyeshu.
Sabhuddhiman manushyeshu.
Sayukta krishna karma krita.
Sayukta krishna karma krita.
Karmanya karmaya pashed. Akarmani cha karmayaha. Sabhuddhiman manushyeshu. Sayukta krishna karma krita.
So let us start at a simple level. Okay, we see the sun rising and setting every day. And we see the earth as stationary. But what is the tattva? As Bhagavan says, what is the truth? In the non-moving earth, seeing movement. In the moving sun, seeing stillness. This, by the way, in a relative sense, because the sun is also moving in a holistic sense. And if we understand this in the relative sense, that means we have understood the tattva of relativity, the truth of relativity. The colorless sky appears blue, or sometimes dark gray, or sometimes orangish red. There is a glow. Sometimes there is a silver streak. But essentially a colorless sky. We don't see electricity. A person who is walking or running at a distance appears stationary. A passenger in a moving train, when she looks outside, she looks at the trees that are moving in the opposite direction. She sees action and inaction. And a person standing on the beach by the ocean, on a seashore, mistakes a ship that is moving at extremely high speed on the horizon to be stationary, actually maybe even to be anchored. He sees inaction and action. Thus, it is seen that action and inaction in nature do not always present themselves in their true form, in the true perspective. What is seen may not be. What may not be is seen. Seeing the truth as it is knowing reality. Thus, Bhagavan is saying this. Karmanya karmanya prasched akarmani cha karmayaha sabuddhiman manushyesu sayukta krishna karmakrita. That person who is able to see action in inaction and inaction in action, that person, he or she who is recognizing inaction in action and action in inaction, this person is wise among human beings. And this person is united with reality, understands the impact of all activity and also of all inactivity, and hence can accomplish anything. Sayuktaha, he is equipped with the knowledge, possessed of that knowledge. Because of performing what? Because of performing Karma Yoga. Krishna Karma Krita means, and because he or she sees the reality as is, with the knowledge, performs all actions, accomplishing everything. Whatever the person does, the person is able to accomplish. Sri Ramanujacharya said, activities taking place through the body, mind and intellect are karma or action. And the supreme knowledge of reality is akarma or inaction. Karma and jnana are complementary to each other. So Bhagavan says, karmanya karmanya paschet. Karmani. Karmani is in action. Yah paschet, who sees. Akarma, inaction. Cha is end, and akarmani, in inaction, yah paschet. This has to be included twice. Yah paschet, although in the verse comes only once, we are supposed to include it twice. Akarmani yah paschet means in inaction, who sees. Karma, action. Sabuddhiman manushyesu. Such a person is wise among humans, because this person can see the truth beyond the facade. So all this is happening in the middle of the battlefield. Shri Krishna and Arjuna are in the middle of that battlefield. Senayo ubhayo madhye. Shri Krishna with his left hand firmly gripping, having an iron grip at the reins of the four-spirited white horses, and his right hand in Jnana Mudra or Chin Mudra, imparting wisdom to his dejected devotee. While his body, mind and intellect are thus engaged in action, they are engaged, calmness reigns supreme on the countenance, indicating that the supreme embodied is, or as Sri Krishna is ever established in inaction. On the other hand, Arjuna, who has cast off his bows and arrows, and he has sat down dejectedly, he appears inactive, head bowed down, doing nothing, though there is great commotion reigning within his insides, within his body, mind and intellect. He is tortured by the conflict of duty, while seemingly he seems to have abandoned or renounced his duty. This miserable Arjuna embodies action in inaction, whereas Sri Krishna, poised amidst purpose, he embodies inaction in action. This inspiring principle of inaction in action throughout his life, Sri Krishna's life, if we read his story, gets revealed through Yogeshwara. Sri Ramakrishna says, a yogi ought to be in the world, but not of the world. He keeps his head in solitude and he keeps his hands in society. She works incessantly and enjoys eternal holiday. That's Sri Ramakrishna. Throughout his personal life, this is what Sri Krishna did, offered us the grand philosophy of action in inaction to a world that repeatedly veers towards inaction in action. Have you ever seen a pole dancer? You know, whirling around the pole, the pillar, holds fast onto it and is moving easily, spinning effortlessly at very fast speed. Similarly, one who has understood the concept of karma and akarma, inaction in action and action in inaction, that person can easily carry out worldly duties with the mind firmly fixed on Bhagavan. And the actions of such a person are like roasted seeds, is an implication. They do not sprout, but roasted seeds do not sprout, but they are extremely tasty. We'll see how in the next verse.
Yasya sarve samarambhaha
Yasya sarve samarambhaha
kama sankalpa varjitaha
kama sankalpa varjitaha
jnanat nidagdha karmanam
jnanat nidagdha karmanam
tamahu panditam buddhaha
tamahu panditam buddhaha.
Yasya sarve samarambhaha kama sankalpa varjitaha jnanat nidagdha karmanam tamahu panditam buddhaha.
For a person who has true comprehension about what? About action and inaction, and who understands the concepts of akarta and abhokta, doership and enjoyership. Such a person is actually known as Samyak Darshi. Samyak means true. Darshi means visionary. This Samyak Darshi, Yasya, for this person, for such a person, Sarve Samarambaha, all activities, all undertakings, actions or activities that the person has taken up, whatever is underway, Sarve, all. Sarve means all actions, irrespective of the magnitude of the actions. Small ones, day-to-day ones, little things that these people do, or massive, humongous undertakings. Both are taken up with great energy and commitment. And Kama Sankalpa Varjitaha. Kama is desire, Sankalpa is motive. Varjitaha. Varjitaha means free of, is not there. There is no desire, there is no motive. Like we see, our Prime Minister, Narendra Modi. He does major things, big activities, small activities. He seems to get involved in almost everything when he's presenting himself to the nation. And he is doing all of that without any, need or without any desire or a motive. Like that, we see people around us, number of people around us. Through this journey of awareness, through this journey that comes from knowledge, why does it come from knowledge? This person has done Jnana Tapasa. We saw that earlier also. His actions have been roasted by the fire of knowledge. Karmanam, whose actions, Jnana Agni Dagdaha, burnt by the fire of knowledge. And like roasted seeds, they do not sprout. The person who has gone through this Jnana Tapasa does not have any disturbances, does not have any sin. We saw in verse 10 of this chapter, Bahavo Jnana Tapasa Uta Madbhavam Agataha. So the person who does Jnana Tapasa, that person does not have any dependence on actions. And what happens to the result of the actions performed by such people? That is in the next verse, verse 20.
Tyaktva karma phala sangam
Tyaktva karma phala sangam
nitya triptu nirashrayaha
नित्यतृप्तो निराश्रयः
कर्मण्यभिप्रवृत्तोऽपि
कर्मण्यभिप्रवृत्तोऽपि
नैव किञ्चित् करोति सः
नैव किञ्चित् करोति सः
त्यक्त्वा कर्मफलासङ्गं नित्यतृप्तो निराश्रयः कर्मण्याभिप्रवृत्तोऽपि नैव किञ्चित् करोति सः.
Tyaktva, this is another word that keeps coming up, in a number of verses. Tyaktva means having abandoned, having given up. Having given up what in this context now? Asangam. Sangam is attachment. Asangam is excessive attachment. The use of indicates excessive. Excessive attachment to what? Karma phala. Karma and its phala. Actions and the fruit of the actions. Giving up attachment to karma is essentially not having that sense of doership, kartritva. And giving up attachment to phala is not having any sense of enjoyership, bhoktritva. So a person who does not have kartritva or bhoktritva has given them up. And how has the person given up? Naturally. It comes naturally to that person. And why does it come naturally to that person? Because this person is nitya tripto. Nitya triptaha is ever content. And nirashrayaha. Nirashrayaha means does not have dependence on anything, is not dependent on anything. For what? For the tripti, for the contentment. Such a person, karmani abhipravittaha, in action, engaged fully, completely. Abhi is completely, fully. Pravrittaha is engaged. And for such a person, naiva kinchit karoti saha. Not surely, there is nothing that this person is said to be doing or anything that this person actually does. In these two verses, Bhagavan has beautifully shown, has beautifully detailed out how in action, in activity, a person can remain free of action. The person may be doing activity, but is free of action. Whatever kind of activity that may be. And in fact, in last satsang, we discussed a number of such activities. A person isn't deep in action, but is free of that action. Now, there was this yogi, a sage. So early in the morning, the yogi took a dip in the river, and then he sat down under a tree for his morning meditation. Now, it so happened that there was a bird on the tree, sitting on the tree, and it also so happened that it was right above where the yogi was sitting, and it dropped like birds drop. Not that the bird fell down and dropped to the ground, a bird dropping, and the bird dropping fell on the yogi's head, on his forehead. Now this yogi was mighty annoyed. He had just come back from a nice clean river bath. He had sat down, all pure, focused on the meditation, and this happened. And he looked at the bird angrily, glared at the bird. And when he glared at the bird, guess what happened? The bird just burnt into ashes, caught fire and burnt into ashes. And the yogi was like, wow, this is pretty cool. This is nice. He was mighty pleased. All his practices looks like they have been bearing fruit. He is developing yogic powers. So this was a kind of proof for his accomplishments of the austerities that he had been performing. After a few hours, he went to the village for bhiksha. In those days, yogis asked for or begged for food. That is called bhiksha. He went to his house and said, Bhikshan dehi, which means he's asking for alms, asking for bhiksha. As per tradition, people, whatever they may be doing, when a sannyasi comes asking for bhiksha, you drop everything and attend to the sannyasi. That is as per old tradition. When the yogi said Bhikshan dehi, a lady's voice came. She said, please wait, I'm coming. The yogi was impatient. He raised his voice and he said, Bhikshan dehi. the lady said, "Please wait, I am coming." He went on shouting and went on getting more and more impatience increasing every moment. The bird episode was helping here, I am an accomplished yogi. I have powers. And how is this that this woman is keeping me waiting? That experience of his had its effect also. She finally came out with her offering and he yelled at her. He said, "How dare you do this to me? How dare you keep me waiting? Don't you know that one cannot keep sannyasis waiting? That's not done." And he glared at her. She said, "Don't you glare at me. Do you think I'm a little bird?" Now this yogi was astounded. He was taken aback. How did she know? He thought. This had happened in the morning, the same morning. So the word had not spread. He had come straight from that experience to get his food. There were no newspapers in those times. There was no Twitter also. The only birds who tweeted were real birds, and one of them he had burned to ashes. It was gone. He said, "How did you know?" She said, "Don't worry about it. I'm sorry I'm late. I was serving my husband who is blind of vision. And hence I could not come in between looking after him. So I got late. Please do not glare at me." And by the way, her blind of vision was pun intended, because the yogi here seems to be blind of many more things, not vision, but other things. The yogi said, he was very, very impressed. And he said, "This is something that I have to learn," and also was very respectful towards the lady who seemed to know much more than him. So he asked her, "Please take me as your disciple." She said, "No, I cannot take you as my disciple because I am a housewife, but I can send you to somebody I know. I can guide you to someone who I know who may be able to help you." And then she gave directions to where the yogi can go to seek this further learning. So the yogi followed directions and the directions led him to the market, and deeper inside the market, and further deeper inside the market till he went to the butcher's lane. Now at the butcher's lane, the yogi was like, he was feeling extremely suffocated. Now this Brahmin yogi, he has never been to a butcher's lane. And not only that, he should not be seen there. He was worried. One, he was feeling suffocated, unhappy about being there. Two, he was worried that he may be seen by people who will then disapprove, castigate him for there at all. It's a sin to go to the butcher's lane, to even think of going to the butcher's lane. And he thought, this must be a mistake. Surely a mistake that this woman has made. She's sending me somewhere. Maybe I shouldn't have glared at her at all. But then there was some instinct and he kept following the directions. Finally reached the particular place that he was supposed to go, found the person, again a butcher who was butchering the animals, blood splattered all over him. And the yogi looked at him and he was revolted. He said, "This can't be the one. Again, I'm 100% sure the woman was wrong. There's something wrong here. He can't be the one who is a visionary, who knows, who is aware of the ways of the world and beyond. And even if he is that knowledgeable person, I'm not going to learn from him. How can I learn from a butcher?" And he turned around to go. As he turned around to go, the butcher called him by name. And he said, "You have been sent by the lady you glared at." And she said, "I'm not the bird. I know you. Please come. You have come to the right place. You are seeking to come here only." And now the yogi was, even more astounded. Not only did this butcher seem to know what had happened in the morning, he seemed to know who the lady was and what she had told him, and who also knew his name. Probably he knows much more about me, the yogi thought. And then he found himself that he was helpless, but he beseeched the butcher, saying, "Please share with me. Please enlighten me. How do you know so much?" And then the butcher said, "Can you please wait? I'll just finish up my work and come." And the yogi this time waited patiently. And when the butcher came, he said, "Let's go home. I'll take you to my home and then we'll sit down and I'll tell you at leisure." And he went home, respectfully asked the yogi to sit down in the front porch, and went in, had a bath, then came out and said, "Can you give me a few more minutes? I just want to make sure my parents have had their food and they are okay. They're old in age." So he asked him to wait for some more time, and then he looked after his parents and came out and then sat next to the yogi. And then the yogi said, the sage said, "Please enlighten me." The butcher said, "It's nothing really. I just go about my day doing all the things that I should do, all my duties, and I dedicate them to the Lord. I dedicate them to God. I am a butcher because I've been born into this family. For centuries, my family has been in this profession. I don't even know any other job. I never got a formal school education. Forget about any other higher education. I don't even know to do anything else. All I know in life from a profession point of view is butchering. And I know to do it well. I've seen it ever since I was a small child. So I know how to do it in such a manner that the animal does not or feels minimum hurt possible. So I take care and do it in a right manner. And I need to do it. I have no choice. I have to earn my income. I have to look after my parents. I have a family to support. This is something that I have to do. I cannot help it. But I do it, and I do it dedicating whatever I do to the Lord. I look after my parents. I go about my daily duties, and that's all I do. Nothing else." As the sage walked back after meeting this butcher, he realized that even though he himself had been practicing austerities, and it seemed like neither the housewife nor the butcher were practicing any austerities for that matter. But the yogi, he thought, "I have not let go of my sense of identity, my equation with my ego, my equation with the sense of I am doing. I was able to burn the bird and I felt great about it." Whereas these two people, they're doing whatever they are doing without that sense of identity, but doing whatever they are doing dedicated to the Lord. And that he felt that they are doing this karma without having any attachment to the karma. So while they were acting, while they were in activity, it was like inaction. They did not have any kartritva or bhoktritva, no doership or enjoyership, and they were at peace. Seemed like they were at much more peace than the yogi himself was. And that's what Bhagavan says, "Tyaktva karma phala sangam, nitya tripto nirashrayaha." Ever fulfilled, ever contented, without any ashraya. So what about such people who perform all their actions in this manner, but they also have to perform a lot of bodily actions, bodily things that every human being has to do. Some of them base level, some of them higher level, but there are certain things that are necessary to even survive. What about those actions and the results? There are apparent results, and how are those outcomes treated by such human beings? We will recite the next two verses together.
Nirashiryata chittatma
Nirashiryata chittatma
tyakta sarva parigraha
tyakta sarva parigraha
shariram kevalam karma
shariram kevalam karma
kurvanapnoti kilbisham
kurvanapnoti kilbisham
yadricchalabhasantushto
yadricchalabhasantushto
dvandvatito vimatsaraha
dvandvatvito vimatsaraha
samasiddhavasiddhau cha
samasiddhavasiddhau cha
कृत्वापि न निबध्यते
कृत्वापि न निबध्यते
निराशीर्यत चित्तात्मा त्यक्त सर्वपरिग्रहः शारीरं केवलं कर्म कुर्वन्नाप्नोति किल्बिषम् यदृच्छालाभसन्तुष्टो द्वन्द्वातीतो विमत्सरः समसिद्धावसिद्धौ च कृत्वापि न निबध्यते.
Nirashihi. Nirashihi means without any hope, without any wishes or wants. And how is that possible? Because this person is inwardly fulfilled. Like the housewife and the butcher, not working for karma phala. Yatha chittatma, naturally controlled, body, mind and intellect, reined in. Tyakta sarva parigraha, having abandoned all the sense of possessing. Literally, this Tyakta sarva parigraha means having abandoned all possessions. But actually, it is also the sense of possessing. Things that are meant for fulfillment of desires, those kind of possessions. Like we have seen, dogs, they chew their bone for a while and then they dig it up and hide it. And after some time, they'll go back and chew it and hide it. I'm sure that the marketing experts looked at the dog and then discovered or invented the 1 liter Pepsi bottles, where you can take a sip or a two and then pour a glass and keep it in the fridge, go back to it after some time. Or ice cream tubs for that matter. Go back again and again. Basically, these are instruments or elements that help us in fulfilling desires. Having abandoned all these accessories of pleasure. Tyaktva sarva parigraha. Shariram kevalam karma. Performing actions for bodily maintenance. Shariram is bodily. Kevalam karma. Only those actions. Kevalam means only, which means, just doing those actions which are required. But kevalam also means merely. Merely means in an unattached manner. Just doing the action, not thinking about, the why, the what, the hows, and other things. Kurvan, doing work in this manner, na apnoti kilbisham, does not incur sin or disturbances or stain. And how does this person manage it all? This person manages because the person is santushtaha, contented. This is the next verse, 22. Santushtaha, contented with the labha that comes yadricha, gain that comes without any ichha. Yadricha is without ichha, without any desires, unexpectedly. If you remember, chapter 2, verse 32, Yadrichaya chopapannam swargadvaram apavritam. The tide always turns favorably towards the person who is focused towards performing duty. And verse 17 of chapter 3, Atman yeva cha santushtaha tasya karyam na vidyate. Where the person who is contented in the self is not bound by any action. We actually saw 3 types. Atmarathi, Atma Santushti, and Atma Tripti. So this person is Atitaha. Atitaha is free from. Free from what? Dvandva. The extremities, the pairs of opposites. At a body level, hot and cold, and so many other things. At an intellect level, disrespect, respect. At a mind level, sad, happy. All these opposites that keep tearing us apart from one corner to the other, from one side of the pendulum to the other. And also free from envy, vimatsaraha. Is not envious of somebody else. Is not jealous of other people. Like the Onida TV ad, long time when we were children, there was this Onida TV had neighbors envy, owners pride. So there was advertising for a television based on human envy. So that was the tagline of Onida, neighbors envy, and there was a devil's image along with that. So no envy, vimatsara. And with all of this, samasiddhau cha asiddhau. Samaha means balanced, equipoised, prasada buddhi. In what? Siddha and asiddha. Siddhau cha asiddhau. Siddha means success and in failure. Balanced in success and failure. Kritva api na nibadhyate. By doing all of this, such a person is not bound to action, remains untouched. So let me take an extreme example. One of the critical roles in the army is that of a paratrooper. And actually, why army? Even when we normally go to if somebody has done para jumping, this is true also. But an extreme example of, a paratrooper or jumping from a plane. See, these paratrooper commandos, they are taken by aircraft deep into enemy territory. They airdrop deep inside enemy territory, parachute down, perform the duty that they are supposed to perform after having gone there. And then they are supposed to escape and come back home. See, one critical element is that when you go, there is stealth. So people don't know. But once you have performed your duty, whatever it was, that secret mission that they went for, they have been exposed. So for example, let's say it was blowing up an ammunition dump. Once it is done, the commandos are exposed. Now they have to escape back. They have to survive and escape back and come back home. So there are two people involved here. The one is the paratrooper who goes up in the aircraft and jumps out of the aircraft. And then there is the soldier who packs the parachute. The one who is packing the chute has nothing to do with its function. He is not going to go into the aircraft. He is not going to take a jump. He doesn't have a mission to complete. He is not going to 35,000 feet and take a jump from there. He probably packs over 100 parachutes every day. So it's pretty monotonous. For him, this action is shariram kevalam karma. Needs to merely get done. But the magnitude of the action, if one parachute is packed improperly, it could cost the life of your fellow soldier. The soldier who's jumping out of the plane wearing the parachute, going to face the enemy or stealthily, whichever way, going to meet a number of unexpected situations while he's performing or carrying out the operation. This soldier has to be yadricha siddhau cha asiddhau samaha. Balanced in unexpected success and failure. How is it when these kind of people perform actions? We will see that in the next verse.
Gata sangasya muktasya jnanavastita chetasaha yajñāyācarata karma samagram praviliyate. Gata sangasya muktasya jnanavastita chetasaha yajñāyācarata karma samagram praviliyate.
Jnana avastita chetasa. Jnana is knowledge. Chetasa, mind. Mind established firmly in knowledge. Avastita. What kind of knowledge? The knowledge of being akarta and abhokta. And because the mind is firmly established, the mind intellect, chetasa is mind and intellect. Mind and intellect firmly established in this jnana of I am an akarta and I am an abhokta. Because of that, therefore, this person is muktasya, free from kartritva and bhoktritva. When I am akarta, where is the kartritva? When I am abhokta, where is the bhoktritva? So free from doership. And because this person is muktasya, therefore gata sangasya, not wanting anything, devoid of attachment. So the person's mind is firmly established and is aware of action and inaction, is firmly rooted in action and inaction, can see action in inaction, can see inaction in action. And thereby himself or herself is not a karta or a bhokta. And because of that, is free of that sense of doership. And because of that is gata sanga, not wanting anything, does not desire anything. So if this person is like that, then what action is the person performing? Yagyasya, for the sake of duty, for the sake of sacrifice. So remember, we talked about it earlier also. Bhagavan covered this earlier. Could be any kind of sacrifice. Deva yagya, Brahma yagya, Pitru yagya, Manushya yagya, Bhuta yagya. Any kind of sacrifice. For that sake of sacrifice, for the welfare of overall creation, for the welfare of another element that belongs to creation, for the sense of duty, for the sense of performance of duty. So whether it is the person who's packing the parachute, extremely, after the 50th parachute, the person is tired. You can't pack 75 or 100 parachutes. After some time, it gets extremely monotonous, but needs to get it done for the sake of duty. The person who's going into unknown land, unknown enemy territory, to perform a very dangerous, highly risky action, has to do it for the sense of duty and possible sacrifice. In the former's case, another person will sacrifice life if he doesn't do his duty well. In the latter's case, he may have to sacrifice his life. So for the sake of yagya, acharataha, performs action. And because he does that and she does that, samagram karma praviliyate. The entire action, samagram means whole, all of it. Karma, action, praviliyate is dissolved. Samagram is sama plus agra. Agra means tip. In this context, agra means all inclusive of the result. So it is the tip. Typically, it is the tip of action that is the result. When you cross the tape after running a marathon is when you have achieved that completion of that marathon. If you have run 43 kilometers and then stop, you have not crossed the finishing tape. The tip is when you cross the finishing line. That is the tip. So agra, samagra means that tip and the 44 kilometers that you have run. All of that put together. All of that, all the actions that the person does, all of that, including everything, is samagram karma praviliyate. All action is dissolved. That is what Bhagavan teaches us. Thank you. Hari Om. We will close with invocation.
Om asato ma sadgamaya tamaso ma jyotirgamaya mrityorma amritam gamaya. Om purnamada purnamidam purnat purnamudachyate purnasya purnamadaya purnameva vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.
Thank you. Hari Om. questions, thoughts, comments?
Hello, Srini. I'll start the proceeding today.
Kusha.
You mentioned Samagra. So Kushagra is also, Agra is also the tip only. Kusha is the grass and Agra is the tip. So basically, I have a question on verse 18. That karmanya akarmaha. So we say action in inaction and inaction in action. So how do we deduce what is a righteous way in doing this? Because a lot of the psychological problems like overthinking or hallucination is also something related to this realm, wherein people see something which is not the reality and kind of interpret something which is not the reality.
True. So your question is?
My question is, how do we deduce what is the righteous way of an action in inaction or an inaction in action? Because they say that how do I say there's a statement by Bhagat Singh who say lovers and lunatics are made of the same blood. So one who is into the act does know that it is the righteous way, but how do we deduce it whether it is the actual right way to do it or not?
Sure. So you're talking about perspective, whether when it comes from an individual perspective, it may appear righteous or right or the correct thing to do. Whereas, is it right from the perspective of a societal aspect or from a larger aspect? So, this comes back to where action is coming from. There are two elements here. One, dharma. Dharma with respect to what my duty is, which is defined by my role. What is the kind of karma that I am doing? So if I'm not doing karma that is kama related or associated with fulfillment of a selfish desire, that is one step. Then the next two steps are the niyata karma aspects, which is nitya karma and naimittika karma. So the nitya karma are things which I have to do anyway. I have to cook, I have to eat. Naimittika karma are those which I have to do because of my role, because of the duties I have towards society. So if my friend is unwell and I've foregone a lunch and going to see the friend, that is naimittika karma. So to the answer to your question is that if you are not doing something which is driven by kama, desire driven, that is step number one to check out. Step number two to check out is that you are indeed doing actions which are meant to be done. Then in all likelihood, they are going to be right from your perspective and also from the perspective of the society as a large. Whereas if you are doing actions that are forbidden, the vikarma that are known to be forbidden, that are defined, well defined to be forbidden. Absolutely forbidden means stay away from forbidden action. That is the implication of vikarma. That is the definition of vikarma. So if we are able to perform our actions keeping these basic aspects in mind, then we will be always on the right track.
Yeah. Just one question that pops in my head. What about, can love be free from desire? And it is not just restricted to a romantic love, any form of love.
So, ultimately they say that the love for God is the ultimate desire that a human being can have, right? That's the ultimate aspect that one can have. So, yes, love by definition or by nature is not free from desire. There is an element of desire in love for anything, in love for any form of, any other form of creation, in form of love for oneself also. So in the story, where the sage burns up a bird, there is too much of probably self-love in that person. So yes, there is desire associated with love. Ultimately, yes, at the end of the journey, you sacrifice that also.
Yeah, makes sense.
But yes, the desire, the love for God is filled with desire for that God. If you're saying, I want to merge with God, if you're saying I want to obtain Sharanagati, you have that desire for Sharanagati. We saw that in Sadhana Chatushtaya also. The mumukshutva, the mumukshu is a person who has that ultimate desire. Mumuksha is desire.
Makes sense.
So Bhagavan does not say that we should, when we live in this world, there will be desire. But if you are able to surmount the desire, not allow the desire to control you, is what Bhagavan talks about. If the desire is controlling your actions, then it is driven by kama, driven by the desire. But if you are a person who is fulfilling desire, if it happens to come to you, yadrichaya, you are not anticipating it, you are not longing for it, you are not, pining for it. But when it comes, of course, you seep it in, you enjoy it, you gain satisfaction, you get the tripti, rati, santushti, all of them in full measure. And then move on again.
I understand this, but what I'm failing to understand here is, so we talked about a marathoner, right? So for a fact, I run marathons. And when I train for a marathon, when I train for a 42 kilometers, there will be days that the weather is not good. There will be days that the field is not good. But it is the desire of the finish line that drags an athlete to the track. So again, but that, how can we say that desire is karma driven? Because that desire is the desire of performance and the desire of what is a goal.
So I will compare this. So what you're saying is true. Okay. I agree with that. But I'll compare this with another feeling that marathoners have. And I'm familiar because I don't do it now, but I've done enough for 7 janmas, as I say in my life, is that you also go through a phase where you have covered 20, 25, 30 kilometers and there is bliss. You're unaware of what's going on. Suddenly you see the tape in front of you. And if you think that what has been going on for the last, 2 hours or 2.5 hours or 3 hours, you don't even realize. You remember that you started, and then there is a huge vacuum in between where there was a sense of elevation. You felt above, the normal pains, the aches, the irritation, the, discomfort, but you have went above all of that and you are floating in the air. And all you remember is that sense of floating, that beautifulness in the atmosphere and that calmness in running a marathon. It's one of the best meditations that is possible, running a marathon. Sometimes in marathons, you achieve that zone of meditation.
Runner's high, they call it.
So, runner's high, you call it. But it's actually, it's sometimes it is thoughtlessness. How is it that 2-3 hours of your life were thoughtless? You just were doing, you were in the throes of action, by the way. You were deep into action. So these are 2 extremes of a marathon runner. One extreme is along with that, constantly thinking of that finishing tape and also feeling the aching left leg, some discomfort here or there. And the other is where all of this is dissolved, including that thought of that finishing leg. That is also dissolved into a different high, runner's high. That sense of thoughtlessness. So that is where Bhagavan is asking us to go in the marathon of life.
Yep, makes sense.
Hi, Nipun.
Hey, thank you for the great session. So a question on Shlok 21, in particular the Shariram Kevalam Karm. So a lot of us, like a lot of our friends, like probably you as well, right? I mean, you can retire, but you don't really need to do karm for the sharir, right? I mean, like we are set in some sense with God's grace to take care of our bodies and like enough day-to-day life. But we continue to do this work, right? I mean, we continue to work hard. And so what is the right message we are trying to get here from Shlok 21? Is it that we should give up everything and just dedicate to God, or you see the confusion here? I mean, it's not just shariram kevalam karma, right? Which we are doing much more.
So this has to be seen in context with the previous verse 20. Huh? The previous verse 20 says, Tyaktva karma phala sangam.
Right.
So having abandoned the attachment to fruits of action, like, for example, having abandoned the thought of crossing the finishing line. Okay?
Right.
Not dependent on that thrill of crossing that finishing, enjoying the journey.
Got it.
So I get that marathon high of a runner when I'm enjoying the journey. When I'm constantly thinking of the finishing line, I'm not getting that the high of a runner.
Right.
So not depending on that thought of crossing the finishing line. Okay. Now so this person lives like that. And when this person is living like that, you are not, feeling that sense of being active. That is when you're feeling that elevation while running. But the question comes, it follows to what you are asking, where the question comes, what about, the daily obligatory bodily maintenance duties? By the way, this includes duties like we have to brush our teeth, we have to go to the bathroom, all of that. Okay.
Right.
It includes everything. It includes duties that are required for maintaining my body. So so there is the story, these gopis after, a very nice mid-afternoon morning, having spent with Bhagavan Sri Krishna, are going back to their villages. And, they see that the river is in spate, the boatman is not there, and they are stuck on the other side of the river. The village is on the farther side, and they are not able to go. And a yogi comes by, and the yogi and the girls say, can you please help? You are such an accomplished yogi. So the yogi says, I can, yes, definitely try. I think I can definitely help. But let me first, do you have some, I see that you have some food with you. Can I have some of the butter? Can I have some of the food? Because I'm hungry. And the story goes that the yogi eats the food nicely and then stands in front of the river and prays and says that if you think, O river, mighty river, or Yamuna, if you think that I have been fasting, then please slow down your pace and let me cross the river. Let us all cross the river. And indeed, within a few seconds or minutes, the flow of the river subsides and they are able to walk across. And the gopis, the girls, ask the sage, what you told this is a dichotomy. You ate food and you ate so nicely. And then you are telling the river, if you think that I have been fasting, make way for me. And the river made way. So what do you mean by fasting? And the yogi said, my fasting is the mumukshutva that I have for Bhagavan, the ultimate desire that I am seeking. That is the fasting that I was referring to when I'm talking to the river. This is something that, yes, there was, for me to be able to pray to the river with a focused mind, I should not be distracted by the bodily pangs of hunger that are there. So when people retire, whether they can retire comfortably or whether they cannot retire comfortably, irrespective of that, whether we have to work our entire life, whether we don't have. Some people have to work because they have to work, they can't sit quiet. Some people have to work because they have to earn the money. The butcher had to work and work in an environment which is not very friendly, conducive in a sense, because he had to. There was no choice. So whatever it may be, if we have this concept of, one, letting go of that thought of what is it in it for me, number one, and two, able to focus on whatever you are doing, able to just do whatever you are doing, while ensuring that the bodily maintenance activities are being carried on.
Thank you.
So yes, in a retirement phase, whether we are well off or whether we are not well off, that is the way to lead life, focused on areas which help us take our mind to those elements of understanding what is action, what is inaction in life.
Cool. Thank you.
This is regarding Mr. Kushagra's observations regarding love and desire. See, every man, the day he is born, he has certain desires till the end of his life. Now, how desire is to be classified? Well, desire is just like Mount Everest. Anybody can have any desire, whether right, wrong, and all, how to get it. But what is good and what is bad, that has been very clearly explained in one of the chapters of Gita. Every desire leads to love. Now, love is of three types. One is Dasya, second is Vatsalya, and third is Madhir. Dasya means the love of Hanuman with Lord Rama. Hanuman was Dasya of Rama. Vatsalya is Yashoda and Krishna, mother and son's love. And Mother is Radha and Krishna. So, when we start loving others, well, we can choose any of these forms. The Dasya form is the easiest because naturally, suppose if your desire is to have a big bungalow in New York, well, that is granted. After that, what? Then you would like to move to White House, things like that. Desire is endless. Or you want to be the better singer than Lata Mangeshkar. But ultimately, these desires culminate into desire for achieving moksha. That can be done only through sadhana. Moksha is not very easy to get, but for divine people, it is very easy to get. So even love converts itself into moksha if it is towards divinity. But that's what I wanted to say.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Any other thought? Okay, if nothing else, Hari Om, and we will meet again on next Saturday. Thank you all. Hari Om.